Welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Do not adjust your screen. You are not seeing double, no camera tricks. If you've come to a Richmond Film Network event, you've likely seen my sister Laura working the box office. And like me, she's a huge cinephile. Unlike me, she's a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, a speaker, an author based here in Richmond, holding licenses in Virginia, Colorado, and Indiana. She brings over 2 decades of experience in mental health care. Laura earned her Master of Social Work from Norfolk State University and her BS in Human Services Counseling from Old Dominion University. Driven by a passion for helping people achieve their dreams and empowering them to solve their own problems, Laura has built a reputation as both a compassionate therapist and an engaging communicator. She has been featured as an expert guest on radio talk shows nationwide and has appeared in publications such as the Daily Herald in Chicago, New You, the Journal Gazette, Alameda Times-Star, Tacoma News Tribune, and East West Woman. So what does that have to do with independent film? Well, Laura just launched her Mental Health in the Movies podcast, which features analysis of your favorite characters from Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street, Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol, Scarlett O'Hara, Rhett Butler, and Ashley Wilkes from Gone with the Wind, and Vito and Michael Corleone from The Godfather. With curiosity, heart, and a touch of fun, it explores what the big screen can teach us about ourselves and the people we love. Not only is this a relatable way to understand mental health, but Laura is also available to consult with writers and filmmakers to craft complex characters and make sure they get it right. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's start with what led you to the field of trauma therapy.
I kind of stumbled into it, and looking back, it just seems kind of obvious. But at the time, I had no idea. At the time I was going into college, no idea what I wanted to do. But when I was younger, I was fascinated by killer books. Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, the Son of Sam, all of that. It was just like, I was addicted. And I think it was just kind of figuring out how their minds worked, because people just were a mystery to me. I had no idea what drove people at all, not just in the criminal ways, but just in day-to-day life. And when I stumbled into a Psychology 101 class, it all started to make sense. And I just find people fascinating. So I went into psychology, and then my first internship, I was in domestic violence because that was what was available. It wasn't like, oh, I have to really work with these people. But that was fascinating too. And I think that if you're working with people and you don't talk about their trauma, you're really just putting a Band-Aid on it. And, you can go out there and be okay for a little while, but it's going to come back. So I like working with the root of the issue. That's where the really transformation processes happen. And I've just loved it ever since.
So how did film become part of your work? And when did you notice that movies could be a powerful tool for talking about mental health?
That actually happened really recently. So when you and I were on More to Consider talking about Gone with the Wind, it was so fun. It was so fun. And I found myself talking about how their minds worked and the psychology behind it, because you can't have all that experience and not draw from that. And I wanted to talk about it some more. So I did more of that for my own podcast. And I'm like, you know what? People responded to this. They liked it. I liked it. I just want to do this. And that's really what kicked it off.
So More to Consider is another podcast that we were both on.
Yeah.
And your podcast, Mental Health in the Movies, blends clinical insight with cinematic storytelling. So how do you decide which films or which characters to feature?
It's really about, what do I like? What do I find interesting? Because I think if I like it, then I'm going to be more engaged in it. It's probably going to be stuff that other people like. And, I like classics, things that that a lot of people have seen. Because while I might like something obscure, it doesn't do any good to talk about that when nobody else knows what you're talking about. So it needs to be enjoyable, needs to be pretty well known. I like characters that are well written. It's easy to go in there and tear somebody's work down because it's not well written. I don't really want to do that. I want to make it more upbeat and fun and informative. So it's really like, what do I like?
So far you've covered Vito and Michael Corleone from The Godfather,
Hmm.
Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, Scarlett O'Hara, Rhett Butler, Ashley Wilkes from Gone with the Wind, Ebenezer Scrooge, A Christmas Carol. Which of those was the most fascinating to analyze and why?
So Ebenezer Scrooge has been my favorite for movie for a long, 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 long time. I really enjoyed that. But the one that was the most fun was Gone with the Wind. And I think because it started with a dialogue, with the back and forth and the sharing of ideas, but it's also because that movie has been around for most of my life. I first saw it when I was really young and it has grown with me. So the things that I've seen in the characters, it that has grown too. As I have more life experience, then I'm able to see more life experience in those characters. So it's just really, really rich. And I think some are just a moment in time and that it is what it is for that moment, but these were totally different. So definitely that one.
So when you're diagnosing a fictional character, how do you balance clinical accuracy with the fact that these are creative works and not case files?
I think you just got to be open and honest about that's what it is. It's a piece of writing, it's not a real person. But if it's well written, then there is a lot of context and texture to it and things that you can infer that will make the analysis interesting and the movie interesting. So I don't know that it matters too much because if it's well written, it's going to speak to people. That's why we watch movies because we identify with the characters and their situations.
So how often do you see that Hollywood gets mental health right, and where do they get it wrong?
The thing that I really, really hate. Pick any movie about DID or dissociative identity disorder, multiple
Which
personality disorder. Yeah, those are all wrong. I don't know that I've seen a good movie about that. I would love to see somebody do that. So I'm throwing down the gauntlet. Somebody, please. Where it gets it right, I think if you're really touching on something human, we might not call it mental health, but it is, because it's about being emotional and sometimes we're emotional in unhealthy ways. We're under stress that comes out. So I think any movie that's honest is going to really need to be in touch with mental health.
Well, I don't think that anybody would think that Scarlett O'Hara, Rhett Butler, or Ashley Wilkes had any mental, what's the right word?
Illness?
Illnesses or diagnoses. I'm not a therapist, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure what word to use. What were their diagnoses, for lack of a better word?
Well, everybody has issues. I think we got to start with that. And everybody doesn't have a diagnosis, but we're all wounded by something and we're all driven by something. And for Scarlett, in the mental health field, when you're talking about Scarlett, most people think she's a narcissist. And there's all this social media stuff now about narcissism. I'm glad everybody's becoming aware of that. I don't think she was a narcissist. I'm a trauma therapist. I see everything through a trauma lens. I think she was traumatized by the war and she was spoiled. So you see the outcomes of those things. Ashley was babied. He was born in the wrong time in the wrong place and you see his weaknesses and his frailties because he's coming from a time that doesn't exist anymore into to a different place and he doesn't have a place in the world. So is that a diagnosis? No, but it's a problem and it's a problem that people can relate to. And I think Rhett comes across as really self-assured. He's a ladies' man. He's suave. He's all of this. He's really polished, but there's a reason for that. And so I'm inferring this doesn't say this in the book or the movie, but we know he comes from a high profile family, rich family. And I would imagine that his mother was cold and rejecting because he didn't like all the women, and the women that he related to tended to be more like the Belle types than the Scarlet types. And he took Scarlet and his daughter and put them on a pedestal. So these are ways of acting. They have a reason. And I think his motivation was to earn somebody's love, earn his mother's love, earn Scarlett's love, earn his daughter's love. The only reason why he wanted to be a part of society was so that his daughter could be accepted. And so there was a lot of rejection, acceptance, and I don't give a crap stuff happening with him. He's got issues. And I would really love to see him resolve them because I want to see him happy. You get involved with these characters, you can't help but connect to their issues.
So let's do another well-known one, Michael Corleone.
What do you want to know about Michael?
I
What's his
want to know
problem?
I want to know as if since he's a fictional character, we can talk about what you as a therapist would have diagnosed him as, and how do you come to that conclusion?
So he's tricky too because he's on the cusp of some things, but according to the DSM, which is what we do use for diagnoses, it's not a perfect document at all, but it gives you some kind of guidelines. He's close to diagnosis, but doesn't necessarily fit one perfectly. I think a lot of people would say he's just a cold-blooded killer. So he's a sociopath, or what we call a psychopath, because he doesn't seem to have any emotions. He doesn't seem to care about anything. He killed his own brother, you know? It's like, where are you going to stop? He didn't care about his wife. He just was all about the business. But he had to be. It was his way to survive. He was the guy who was not part of the family business. He was the one that was going to be the lawyer and, clean him up and make him look respectable and all of this. And then all of a sudden his dad gets attacked. His brother gets killed. And he's the only one. It's a family of vendetta. He has to avenge the family. He has to keep everybody safe. It's up to him. He doesn't have any choice but to shut his emotions down. And this is how he copes. So I think it makes him really understandable if you look at it from a psychological perspective. He's suffering from trauma. His dad had trauma. His whole family was gunned down. He came to this country when he was 9 years old, not speaking the language, not having anybody. He's an orphan. He had to figure out how to survive. So you got intergenerational trauma happening here as well. I mean, I think the Corleones are such a rich family to examine, to look at the impact of intergenerational trauma. It's one of the mafia. I mean, but you see it in slavery families, you see it in poor families, you see it in all kinds of families where there's hardship that doesn't get resolved. How does the first generation deal with it? How does the second generation deal with it? And it just gets heavier and heavier and normalized until this just becomes part of our society and part of our culture. And we don't look at it as trauma anymore because it's just so quote unquote normal. These are problems. And that's one of the things too that I am hoping that people will pick up, is that these things can be better. You don't just have to live with this stuff.
So what does it say about us as viewers when we cheer for these characters to get their revenge or get the money or, get the guy, or
I think
cheering
it
for those
says that
bad
we
guys?
we have those passions too, and we can relate. Everybody has dreams, and even if you're going after it in a bad way, you do want to see somebody get what they want because it kind of feeds the idea that you can have what you want. And in the case of a bad guy, I think there's part of us that feels victimized at times, and we want our revenge. We want to hit back at the man, whatever that means for us. So we do cheer for them. And I think it's a way of vicariously engaging in our darkness without ever actually having to take those risks ourselves.
What is one film that nails an accurate portrayal of a psychological condition?
Oh, there's so many.
Good. Okay.
I think Awakenings, um, Little Miss Sunshine.
Explain what those conditions are and how it's correct.
Well, so I don't remember what the guy's condition was. Robert De Niro's condition was when they were catatonic and then they woke up for a second and then they all went back to sleep. But this was based on a true story. And I think what they got right was the humanity, the care. It's not always like that. I would say it's probably mostly not like that. But that does happen. You have people in the field who are passionate and who really want to help and really do make a difference. And one of the things that got me in this field and keeps me here is seeing that light come on. And I think a lot of us out here love that. When you can help somebody and help them to feel alive, even if it's just for a second, it's just so wonderful to see them come to life. Loved that. Little Miss Sunshine was really kind of disturbing, but I think they got the humanity right. I think they got the family dynamics and the complications. Life's not clean and simple. And they've really captured that in a kind of funny, sometimes and distorted way. Most people have quirky family members, and I think that that's real. Sometimes when it's too sanitized, it doesn't work. Or if it's too formulaic, or this is how it's supposed to look. And I think that's why the dissociative identity disorder films don't work. It's because they take this stereotype and it just becomes a caricature.
And on the flip side, what film has gotten it completely wrong?
So all the DID films,
And name some.
Split, Primal Fear, Fight Club, Waking Madison, I think is the name of one of them. Yeah, because they go straight Jekyll and Hyde. They go straight caricature. It's the condition really is. I mean, people, they're different, but it's not like Jekyll and Hyde different. It's not like I'm gonna kill you and then I'm the sweet old lady. It's not like that. And I think it does a disservice to the people who have this condition, because it's quite common. 30% of people with complex PTSD have DID. It's not mysterious. It's not rare. And it's not Jekyll and Hyde.
So if a screenwriter or a filmmaker wants to consult with you about a character that they're developing for their film, what would that process look like? Do you read the script? Do you give them written notes, a verbal consultation? Would you want to be on set? What would that look like for them?
It depends on what they think they want. I think they need to be the lead on that. I would certainly read the script and then get their vision of what they're trying to do. I think if you're just tapping into real life, then you're pretty solid. I wouldn't worry too much about the mental health and the diagnosis and, like whatever happened to Baby Jane. That's a pretty crazy movie. I don't think that they said, oh, she's got this condition. Let's see how we can portray it. I wouldn't come at it from that angle. I would come at it from, what does real life look like? What are the emotional aspects of these people? What feels real? I think if you can do that, then you'll capture it, even if you have no idea about diagnoses.
Well, you kind of have to work from the diagnosis to kind of understand what that behavior would look like.
Well, let's take The Last Showgirl. I think they did a horrible job. So it's an entertaining movie, like the movie. This is not a real character. So for people who haven't seen the movie, it's about an aging showgirl. She's 57 years old, working in Vegas. All she wants to do in her life is be on the stage. She just wants to be adored. She eats organic. She has no vices. She doesn't smoke. She doesn't drink. She doesn't gamble. She has friends. She is fit. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. If somebody were really that healthy, and she doesn't have any wrecked relationships, but she is estranged from her daughter. She doesn't have any relationship really with her daughter. And that looks like it's her only issue. That's not a real person. That is the hooker with a heart of gold fantasy. This person, if somebody's 57 years old and all she wants to do is be on stage and she is pretending that she's 36, she's got some issues. She's got some complexity in her background. She's got some other things going on where you see this showing up. It's not going to be one dimensional where her only thing is she's afraid to age. So that's where somebody would need some help.
Okay, so say that script is presented to you, and that's what you get from reading the script, and that's how it's presented. What would your consultation look like? What would some advice be specifically? You said that it would that she would have some other issues, wanting to be 36 and wanting to be admired. What might you suggest to make that a more rounded character or more in depth?
Well, so Jamie Lee Curtis was also in that movie, and she played her best friend. She had a very small part, but her character, I think she stole the show, because you see her, she gambles, she's a little bit paunchy, and her makeup is totally wrong. It looks like it's from the 90s. I don't know. It's wrong makeup for somebody of that age. And when she dances on the stage, she shows so much emotion there, and how she's just tuned out to reality. She has her own reality. So I don't think it needs to be something overt. But Pamela Anderson, she didn't really have a whole lot of depth to her. And that's probably, she talks like this and all that, like she's a little girl, which was fine for that character. That works. But I would probably have her be smoking and drinking and, have a wrecked background. And she was just too pure for that. It was, I don't know how I abandoned my daughter. Why don't we have a good relationship? It's just like she was just totally disconnected from everything. The movie felt to me like she was supposed to be a tragic hero because here she is, 57. All she wants to do is dance. She still has a great body and she can't because she's old. I don't think that's the movie at all. I think the movie is that she's not living in reality. She's not accepting her aging. She has done everything for this role to be on stage, and she has created a wreck behind her, and it's totally unaware of it. That should show up in her life. She should be drinking something. She can't sleep. She's popping pills trying to sleep. I don't know, she's got a shopping addiction, something. She has friends who are not as put together as the ones that she had. There's one scene where she rejects a fellow coworker. Her coworker needs her to be there for her, and she's just like, "Oh, I just don't have time for you right now." There should be more of that. There should be more showing how she's just self-centered and can't really cope with real life.
So in your show, you talk about what real therapy looks like. What's the biggest misconception audiences have about therapy because of how it's shown in the movies?
I think the biggest misconception is the Freud thing where you're laying down on a couch. I have a couch in my office and people get real nervous because there's a couch. Am I supposed to lay down on it? And that the therapist is just going to sit there with a notepad and just listen and kind of analyze you. And that's really not what happens at all. It's more interactive, I hope. And it's more goal oriented where we talk about how we're going to make whatever you're identifying as your problem better. And I think people think they just come there to talk. Like, this is not a confessional. This is a work session. Hopefully.
Okay, so, and this has nothing to do with film, but if they come in thinking it's going to be the Freud situation and they don't get that, is that a conflict? Is that a problem? Do you find that people may prefer that or want that?
I've had 2 clients in my career that's all they wanted. So hopefully what you're doing is you're having a collaboration of what your purpose is and how you're going to accomplish it, and you both agree to that. So there shouldn't be any surprises. The 2 clients that wanted to just come in and tell me about their day, I ended up not working with them.
Are there any on-screen therapists that you think get it right, that are pretty accurate?
Mostly with Good Will Hunting. I thought Robin Williams was very effective. So if you're familiar with the film, what's the guy's name? Will went through a bunch of therapists before he got to Robin Williams, and they will push your buttons. Clients will push your buttons, especially if they have abandonment issues, because they want to know that you're going to stick around. And he pushed their buttons and they all was like, not for me, get out of my face. And Robin Williams was there. Every time he challenged him, he's just like, I see through you and I'm going to be here for you. So I love that about him. I love that he used humor, real life, personal disclosure in a healthy way. And he actually crossed some boundaries in the movies. I think made the movie better. But overall, he's a really, really good therapist. And I'll be talking about that one in an upcoming episode.
If Michael Corleone or Scarlett O'Hara walked into your office, what would their session look like?
If it's a first session, so like I said, we would be talking about what brings them there and what they hope to get out of it and kind of be contracting for what that's going to look like so that we both have good expectations on both sides. And whatever they want to work on, that's what we're going to work on. So let's say that somebody's a raging alcoholic and they want to work on getting a better job. That's what we're going to work on. So it's really up to the client. It's client driven. It's not up to me to say these are your problems unless they want that. I'm here to serve you.
Okay. So
Michael
you
Corleone would not come to therapy though, because it requires some vulnerability, and he can't afford to have any.
So what about what's the one?
Sopranos.
Yes.
Was he mandated? I think he was mandated, wasn't he?
Was he? I have not seen a single
I
episode.
haven't either, but I want to. I want to because I've heard a lot about that.
So your goal is to help people understand psychology. What's one thing that you wish everyone understood about mental health after watching your podcast?
Let me give two. So one, I've said before, but that DID is not Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because that's how the movies portrays it. And the second one is that everybody has issues. Most of my clients look really well adjusted. So there's two ways that people present. It's either under controlled, so you see the emotions, big emotions on the outside. Those are the people who get labeled with mental health issues. Those are the people who tend to come because they're just like, I know I have issues. But there's other people who you don't see their emotions. They happen on the inside. They're over controlled. So I'm really disciplined and I look good on the outside. On the inside, I'm a total mess. I'm anxious about everything. I'm a perfectionist. I'm an overachiever. Everything's just got to be right. Those are the people that tend to not come to therapy who need to be in therapy. So most of us lie on one of the other sides. With that middle part, you're probably good. Everybody's got stuff though. Everybody can grow. I'm all about growth. I'm always trying to do better than I was yesterday. So I think everybody can benefit from therapy. And that's something that I wish everybody knew, especially if you're hurting. You don't have to hurt.
So you had teased that Good Will Hunting is one of the episodes that's coming up. And I have your list in front of me, but do you want to share? I don't know if you want me to spoil what's coming up or you want to surprise
no,
everybody.
it's on the YouTube. So I have a lot of requests already, and I just want people to know, some of them, they're already on the list. It's coming. And I love requests. So if you want to say, hey, you do this one, let me know, because if it's interesting to you, I'm sure it's going to be interesting to me too.
Well, let me share then.
Okay.
The Fighter, love. Good Will Hunting, of course, and that's Matt Damon, by the way.
Yes.
Barfly, Misery, The Shining, can't wait. American Psycho, I think you're going to have a field day with that one. Girl Interrupted, Wicked, that'll be fun for a lot of people. The Grinch, Black Swan, Joker, Fight Club, you mentioned, and Fatal Attraction. I'm looking forward to these. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow. Where can anyone who's interested in following along and seeing the episodes, where can they find them?
It is on YouTube at Laura Giles 804, and there's a bonus because there's a playlist too of DBT and RODBT skills, which actually, if you're having some problems, they can probably help you out.
You're talking a language I don't talk. What does that mean?
So DBT is a therapy that's developed for people with under control. So you have big emotions. They come out. And RODBT is for people who are over controlled, so their emotions are on the inside. So these skills on there are things that can help people who are not coping so well.
And if anyone has questions, how can they contact you?
My website is lauragiles.net or lauragiles.org.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.